Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Stella Roberts, and I'm feeling great. How are you today? Today I was supposed to go into my last appointment with my midwife to check on my new baby. It would have been her 6-week appointment. But when I got ready this morning, they called me to let me know that she had to go and deliver a baby, and so my appointment got rescheduled till tomorrow. Since I had this time blocked off, I thought to myself, why not share my birth story with you? I'm excited to share it. I don't know if you're excited to hear it, but I hope you are. And if you are, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and please don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you. Alright, I'm gonna try not to overthink the video and just let you guys know my experience. So if you've seen my last video, which I'm gonna link above, about me being 37 weeks pregnant and having contractions and not knowing if I was gonna give birth soon, then you're probably wondering what really happened, because I basically went ghost from that video until now. I haven't really updated anyone about anything. I mean, I did post, by the time I post this video, I should have posted another video already about just updating you guys very quickly and letting you guys know that I would be posting soon. And so, praise God, I was able to keep my word and film this video. But let me stop rambling and let me just get right into it. So after I filmed that video at 37 weeks, I was experiencing about one contraction every day. And so every day could have been the day. Every day I was excited, I was eager, and I wasn't impatient, but I was ready to go. And so every day, one day at a time, I had a contraction. At 38 weeks, I thought I was going to give birth, because at this point I was having like 2 contractions every day. And it's not that I was in pain. They didn't hurt that much, but they definitely were contractions that I couldn't move through. And so I was really convinced that I was going to give birth. But then 39 weeks passed by and I didn't give birth yet. And I was expecting to at least give birth at 39 weeks, since that's when I gave birth to my son. That didn't happen. And I remember calling my husband when he'd be at work a couple of times. And he'd be like, is it the day? And I'd be like, I don't know, I'm having contractions. But then I would let him know that if it progressed, I'd call him back. So he was on a high alert every day as well. Finally, on her due date, on March 21st, so what happened was on March 20th, the day before, I did feel different, I was having some sharp pains, and I remember being in the shower, and it was like, the pain was really bad. I couldn't even stand up straight. I was in pain. And so I remember getting out of the shower, telling my husband how hard it was for me in the shower, and he would like help me and stuff like that. And he went off to work. So he works overnight, and basically when he left for work, I was completely fine. I wasn't even having that one contraction for the day. I only had the pain in the shower. Then I was just going about my day. I put my son to bed and everything. And I remember I was sitting at the dinner table with my brother and sister in the Lord, whom I live with currently. And we were just having a conversation. Like, we were all in the kitchen. We were all just talking, having a good time. I might have been drinking some juice or eating some food. I don't know. And I remember I was actually holding my son because my son had woken up out of his sleep and he wanted to be held. He wanted to be held really close, which is not something that is usual. When he goes to bed, he usually stays in bed. So I'm there sitting and I'm holding him, and all of a sudden, I get this contraction. And I get it in front of my brother and sister in the Lord. So they're looking at me and they're like, okay, it's probably that one contraction that you get every day. And I'm thinking that too. Not so. So I decide that I'm gonna just, text my husband, let him know, okay, I had one contraction, big whoop, but I'm still gonna let you know. And usually he responds right away, but he didn't respond. It was fine. But 10 minutes later, as I was holding my son, I had another contraction. And this time, my reaction was to just like sit my son down on the kitchen table to go through the contraction. And I still was in denial. Honestly, my roommates were the ones who were like, girl, I'm pretty sure that's a real contraction. And I was like, no, it can't be. How many times have I had these contractions every day for the past 3 weeks? I'm pretty sure it's not a contraction, not a real one, at least not an active one. And so I continued to just be in denial and to just do whatever it is I had to do. And then another 10 minutes passed by. I had another contraction. So after 4, I think 5 contractions, then I was like, okay, I guess I never had 5 in a row in one day. So I'll text my midwife. I'll let her know. But the thing is, with my son, my water broke. And then a few hours later, I was in active labor. So I had no pain. And then I had pain, some pain. Okay, so I text my midwife and she's like, you need to come in because you have fast labors. But they also told me to come in when I had a false labor just a couple weeks ago. And so I was like, okay, they just want to be sure, So I start to call my husband and he's not answering the phone. I think I called him like 13 times and he was not answering the phone. Usually he answers right away. But there is a portion of his job where the noise is very loud. And so literally when I started calling him is when he started polishing at his job, which means that the noise is very loud. He was working with the machine, so he probably wasn't hearing his phone vibrate or feeling it. And so I start to feel stressed because I'm like, okay, he's not answering the phone. And I am possibly in active labor. So let me just keep calling him. I keep calling him. I call my mom. I'm like, Mom, I think I'm about to give birth to my baby. And Ellis is not answering the phone. And she's like, keep calling him. Don't worry. He's going to answer on time. Don't worry. He's going to make it. And that's when I remembered that I had his boss's phone number somewhere hidden in my archives. So I started searching my phone, searching my old text messages. Thank God I didn't delete my text message thread. And I finally found his phone number. So I call his boss at was it midnight or 1 a.m.? I call him and I'm like, hi, this is Ellis's wife. Nice to meet you. We never met before. But I'm in labor. And Ellis is not answering his phone. I was wondering if you had a way to reach him, And then his boss asks me, he's like, is it an emergency? Do you think this is it? And as he's speaking to me, I have another painful contraction. And just thinking about myself having a contraction while speaking to his boss on the phone makes me cringe on the inside. But I did what I had to do to reach my husband. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to go physically get him at the job and let him know. And if ever he sees this video, I just want to say thank you so much. So anyways, my husband finally calls me and he's like, you're in labor? I'm like, yeah. And he stays on the phone with me until he gets home. And at this point, I'm still having them every like 10 or so minutes. The time is getting closer to about 6 minutes. But you're not in active labor until your contractions are 5 minutes apart regularly. And I was still having irregular contractions with different intensities, but they were definitely increasing over time. And this was a different experience for me because I didn't have those contractions in my latent phase with my son. With my son, I had no contractions at all in my latent phase. So the thing is, I actually prayed and I asked the Lord for a somewhat typical birthing experience. I asked the Lord to give me that experience where you do have the contractions leading up to your active phase, because I felt like I didn't have that experience with my son. With my son, my water broke, nothing happened, and then he popped out of my body. So I wanted to have that experience of, having a contraction, and then another, and then another. Well, the Lord delivered, and I had contractions from 37 weeks until I gave birth to my baby. But, more specifically, I had contractions starting at, I don't know, maybe 11 p.m. is when I had the first one. And they were maybe like a half an hour later, I had another one, maybe 20 minutes after that. So it was not that intense. It was still a latent phase. I was not in active labor, but I did have my warning shots that were being fired. So my husband gets home, our bags are packed, he takes everything, we go, and literally when we get into the car, my contractions stop. I did not have one contraction from the time we got into the car until the time we got to the birthing center. Literally, I was like, I knew this wasn't it. Like, I knew that this was false labor. Like, look at that. It just stopped. Like, and they say that when you start to move around and do things, if it's not real labor, the contractions will stop. If it's real labor, you won't be able to do all those different things. So I was like, I knew this was another episode of mine. Like, I'm probably never gonna give birth. At this point, that's what I was thinking. And so we get to the birthing center, and my husband parks the car. He's telling me, all right, wait for me in the car. I'm gonna take all the bags out. He's treating me like a princess or a baby. I don't know. And he's like, I don't want you to stand yet, because when you stand, your contractions are going to start. And I'm like, how do you know that? Like, you can't possibly know that. But in his mind, he's saying, well, since you're going to be standing, the baby's just going to drop out. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like, just because I'm sitting down doesn't mean that that's what's stopping my contractions. They're probably just fake. Like, I've been having fake contractions for the past 3 weeks, almost a month. So I get up out of the car, and I kid you not, I got a contraction instantly the moment that I stood up. And I was like, okay, maybe he is onto something. Maybe the Lord is using him to speak wisdom to me, but I was not listening because I'm the expert, right? I'm the woman, and I thought I knew better. But anyway, I don't know if it's a fact or if it was just the Lord just telling me, like, listen to your husband. But so I stand up out of the car and I have one contraction, just one. So I'm like, okay. So we walk into the birthing center. My midwife is there. She's excited, and I'm like, yeah, we'll see if I actually give birth today. I was totally in denial. And at this point, it was the 21st of March. It was her due date. It was about I would say 1:30 when we got there, because it's not very far from home. And I remember they did their tests and everything. They checked to see if I was dilating. I was not very dilated, to be honest. I was like 2 or 3 centimeters only, and you have to get to 10. They don't even consider it active labor until you're like 4 or 5 centimeters dilated, and that can take, a week. That can take a minute. So it's really unpredictable. So finally, after they do all their tests, they're like, all right, well, we'll just wait and see what happens, because we don't want you to go home thinking that it's false labor and then you end up giving birth or having to drive back in active labor. So just sit tight. We'll see how things progress. We'll see if they progress. And if they don't, after a couple hours, then you could go home and rest, and we'll just wait for the actual day. So I think I was not really getting contractions. Maybe I had another one, maybe like 2, between 1:30 and 2 a.m., which is highly irregular. It's very spaced out. And I'm like, you know what? I remember with my son, I labored in the water. So let me take a bath. So I turn on the hot water. My husband helps me. I sit in the bath, and I remember asking my husband, what time is it? And he was like, it's 2 o'clock. I'm like, okay. And I kid you not, I started having contractions back to back, and I was having them 2 at a time, 2 per wave of contraction. So usually when you have a contraction, you have one big contraction, and then it calms down, and then you have another big contraction. But for me, I was having the waves in doubles. So I would have a wave, I'd have contraction, it would release, it would contract again, and then it would relax. And that was extremely painful for me. I mean, I've been through labor before. I gave birth to my son naturally, but it didn't hurt like that. With my daughter, and I'm looking at her sleep ever so peacefully. With my daughter, I was in so much pain. I remember thinking during labor, just cut me open. Why am I here, And so I was having the contractions in waves, and I was having 2 contractions in a row at a time. And so I was like, why are they coming in 2s? Like, anyways, I labored in the bath the whole entire time, and my midwife started asking me, she's like, whenever your water breaks, just let us know, because it hadn't broken yet. So I was in labor for about an hour, and my water still didn't break. And so they needed to know, like, are we going to break the water for you, or is your water going to break on its own? And we just want to monitor everything. And so literally the moment that she asked me to let her know if her water's going to break is the moment, like, she finished speaking and my water broke. And I kid you not, the water's breaking was the worst pain I ever felt in my life. I felt like I was getting stabbed repeatedly. Like, I know that this story is sounding ridiculous and crazy, especially if you've listened to my first birth story. But the thing is, I had expectations, and those expectations, set me up to be disappointed and to be in excruciating pain. I was not prepared for the pain that I experienced to birth that beautiful baby girl. So I'm going to try to wrap it up because I see that she's waking up soon. But after my waters broke, they broke twice, by the way. It's like everything was coming in 2s. I started labor at 2, was having double contractions, and my waters broke twice. I remember my husband saying, whoa, because he could see the gush of amniotic fluid. Sorry if that's too much information, but that's what happened. And afterwards, you know, literally 30 minutes later, she was born. So it was a very high intensity. It was extremely fast, and it was also extremely painful. Um, in the end, I felt like I wasn't gonna do it. I felt like I was gonna fail and that I wouldn't be able to give birth. But the thing about labor and giving birth is that it's gonna happen one way or another. The baby's not gonna stay inside. So even if it does hurt excruciatingly, you're gonna succeed. You're gonna get over that hurdle of pushing a baby out. And I remember when I was pushing her, she was a bigger baby than my son. She was full term, 40 weeks on the dot, an extra pound more than my son. You know, her head was bigger and everything. Um, while I was pushing, because of the pain, at first I was just like trying to force her out. But then I remembered what I had learned when I gave birth to my son, was that I am the one who's in control. Even though I know people say, oh, you're pregnant, do what you want. Oh, you're giving birth, do what you want. You know, I know that the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. And so I'm not going to swear and cuss and yell at everyone, but I'm going to control myself the best I can. And I remember, you know, going through every contraction and really just allowing my body to ride the wave and allowing my body to, you know, embrace the pain, which is what I always tell women who are pregnant or who are afraid of giving birth. I remind them, you know what, you are in control, you have self-control, and if you embrace the pain, it'll be better. And so, yes, the pain was horrible, but I was able to be in control, to really ride the waves and to embrace the pain. But when it was time to push, with my son, I had a break, but with her, she decided she was going to come out in one push. And so I tried to stop pushing, but it wasn't happening. She was coming out. And so I thank God that he reminded me to embrace the pain in that moment, because in that moment, I was like, I'm going to just push her out. Like, I'm so done. It felt like it was going on for so long too. I was like, how long have I been in labor? Like, this is so long. And I just stopped. I focused. I just kind of became one with my body and focused my mind on what I was feeling, on feeling her body, feeling my body, and just carefully and calmly, I finished pushing her out. And the thing is, when you push your baby out and you are the one in control, you're not listening to anybody else, you're not trying to force her out, but you're really, you know, embracing the pain, embracing the moment, and doing it gently, then I would say from my experience, that's how you make sure that you don't tear. That's how you make sure that you don't rip, because, you know, your body is flexible and elastic. If you just pull the elastic super fast, chances are it'll break. But if you take your time to pull it gently, then it can stretch very far without breaking. And so she finally came out. I ended up giving birth in the water, which was a very new experience for me. And once she was born, I mean, that was it. I had her in my arms, and all of the pain, just like that, was worth it. And so that is what happened. I mean, afterwards, the recovery was very interesting. I had a very different recovery than with my son, and I think that I will share that with you guys on the next video, because she is waking up. She is going to want her milk, and just getting ready for the day, we are going to go on our walk, which is another thing that I have started lately. Is I've been on a self-care journey, just taking care of my health, taking care of my body, taking care of my mind, as well as eating better and all of these things. So I'm going to cut the video right here, and hopefully next time I'll be able to talk about postpartum recovery, and I would love to do a segment on my self-care journey, as well as another segment on my journey maturing and growing as a housewife. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It just brought back so many memories for me. If you have given birth or are about to give birth, please share with me your experience. Share with me, your thoughts and maybe concerns. But overall, I gave birth in an hour and a half. I thought it was like everlastingly long, but it was half the time that my son came. He was a 3-hour labor. She was a 1.5-hour labor. And I just give God glory for her life. She's such a sweet girl. She's very wise. And I just love her so much. And I thank you guys so much for tuning in today. God bless you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.